Pick up your phone. Look at it. That device represents billions of years of evolution, from the first tiny cell to complex organisms to intelligent life capable of creating technology. But what if I told you we got the timeline completely wrong? What if I told you that complex life like us already happened once before? 2 billion years ago. And then it all died out. What if the history of life on Earth isn't a simple progression from simple to complex, but a story of spectacular success, followed by total extinction, followed by starting over from scratch? You think evolution is a steady march toward complexity? Let me show you why some scientists think we might be the second attempt at intelligent life on this planet. Here's what they teach you in school. Life started simple, really simple. Single cells without even nuclei, just floating around for about 2 billion years, doing basically nothing. Then, around 600 million years ago, something clicked. Cells started organizing, getting bigger, getting more complex. Fast forward to today, and here we are, the pinnacle of evolution, watching videos on YouTube. That's the textbook story. Slow, steady, predictable. 2 billion years of waiting, then 600 million years of rapid progress. But what if the textbook story is completely wrong? You probably think those 2 billion years were just boring, empty time, evolution's waiting room, single cells just sitting around, not doing much, waiting for the magic moment when they'd figure out how to be complex. That seems reasonable. Evolution takes time, right? Complex life is hard. It makes sense that it took billions of years to get started. But there's a problem with this story, a big problem hidden in rocks that are over 2 billion years old. In Gabon, Africa, scientists found something that shouldn't exist. In rocks that formed 2.1 billion years ago, long, long before complex life was supposed to emerge, they found structures. Not microscopic structures, not tiny bacterial mats. Structures about a centimeter in size. That might not sound like much, but remember, this is supposed to be the era of single cells. Individual bacteria are measured in micrometers, millionths of a meter. These things are 10,000 times bigger than anything that was supposed to exist. But size isn't the strangest part. These structures are made of pyrite, iron, and sulfur compounds. That could happen naturally. But inside the pyrite, there's something that makes no sense. Concentrated blobs of arsenic. Arsenic is poison. It kills living things. So why would there be concentrated arsenic deposits in these ancient rocks? Here's the terrifying possibility. What if these blobs mark the graves of complex organisms that had learned to isolate toxins? What if 2.1 billion years ago there were creatures smart enough to separate poison from their bodies, concentrate it in specific organs, and survive in a toxic environment? When they died, the arsenic stayed concentrated, a chemical signature of biological intelligence from an impossible time period. But it gets worse. These aren't randomly scattered through the rock. They appear to have moved, dragged themselves to specific locations before dying, as if something was crawling across the seafloor 2.1 billion years ago, concentrating toxins, dying, and leaving behind these chemical tombstones. If this is true, it means complex life didn't take 2.5 billion years to evolve. It took maybe 500 million years. And then something happened, something catastrophic. The first attempt at complex life went completely extinct. For over 1 billion years, Earth went back to simple cells. And then, 600 million years ago, life tried again. And that second attempt That's us. Most geologists say this is impossible. They insist there must be some chemical process that could create these structures without any living organisms involved. But here's the problem. They can't explain how. They have theories. Maybe it was fluid deposits. Maybe it was just a big mat of bacteria sitting in one place. But none of these explanations account for the arsenic concentration or the apparent movement patterns. The skeptics don't have a better explanation. They just know this one feels wrong. How could complex life evolve, thrive, and then vanish so completely that we almost missed it entirely? How could evolution essentially restart from scratch? How could an entire billion-year chapter of life's history be erased? What kind of catastrophe could wipe out complex organisms but leave simple bacteria intact? What could be so devastating that it reset the evolutionary clock entirely? And if it happened once, could it happen again? We don't know what killed the first complex life. We don't know how advanced it got. We don't know if it developed intelligence, communication, technology. All we have are these cryptic chemical signatures in ancient rocks. Think about that. An entire evolutionary experiment, potentially lasting hundreds of millions of years, reduced to arsenic blobs in Gabonese shale. If they had another billion years, where would they have ended up? Would they have developed intelligence? Would they have figured out the YouTube algorithm better than we have? And here's what really keeps me up at night. If complex life arose twice on Earth, if evolution got a billion-year head start we never knew about, what does that say about life elsewhere in the universe? Maybe we're not special. Maybe we're not rare. Maybe we're just the latest attempt on a planet that's tried this experiment before. Maybe intelligence is common in the universe, but it's also fragile. Maybe civilizations rise and fall regularly, leaving only cryptic traces in the geological record. If this theory is right, then every civilization we might encounter out there has already been through this cycle. They've already survived their first extinction event, their second, maybe their 10th. To them, we might look like those ancient bacteria looked to early complex life, simple, primitive, barely worth noticing. We might be the equivalent of microbial mats to a billion-year-old galactic civilization. On the other hand, we value our microbes, don't we? Where would we be without sourdough and cheese? Maybe there's hope for us yet. The truth is, we don't know if these structures represent ancient complex life. The evidence is tantalizing but not definitive. We might be seeing patterns where none exist, or we might be missing the greatest discovery in paleobiology. But that's how science works. We follow the evidence even when it leads somewhere uncomfortable, even when it suggests we're not the first or the most important or the most advanced life this planet has produced. But there's a deeper lesson hidden in these arsenic blobs. The right way to deal with toxicity isn't to ignore it or fight it directly. It's to isolate the harmful compounds, concentrate them safely, and let them fossilize. Maybe that's true for more than just ancient organisms. Maybe that's true for civilizations too. So the next time you look at your phone, remember, you might be holding the product of Earth's second attempt at intelligence. The first attempt left only chemical whispers in billion-year-old rocks. We don't know why the first experiment failed. We don't know if we'll avoid the same fate. But we do know this: complex life is both easier to evolve and more fragile than we thought. Evolution doesn't just march forward, sometimes it has to start over, and we might be living proof that starting over can work.